had no idea.
There we go.
We're going to call our meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and welcome to our August council meeting. I'd like to start it off with Councilman Whitehurst, an invocation and pledge.
Y'all please stand with me and bow your heads. Dear Lord, we just give you thanks and praise for having the opportunity to live in this county and live in this country, and we're so thankful for that we can self-govern. And just give us tonight wisdom and guidance as we move forward the business of this county, and ask you to protect all the people out there defending this county, defending this country. In Christ's name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oops.
Once again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to be here. We really do appreciate the social distancing and that you guys took the moment to come out and be a part of this. And Madam Clerk, I guess it's time for our public forum. All right, thank you very much. We move on to our next item, which is the approval of minutes. I'll ask for a motion for approving the minutes for July 13th, 2020 council meeting. Motion by Councilman Feaster. Second by Councilman Hudson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That carries. Our next item is our administrative report. Mr. Roper.
Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to appear here tonight and to give you an update on some of the things we've been doing at the staff level. First thing I'll talk about is just to continue to give you updates and so that everybody will have the same data. In terms of our COVID-19 situation, in Pickens County now we have 270 active cases reported within the last 14 days. That's the way DHEC determines active cases. That number 270, which I'll show you, it's not a great number, but I'll show you in a moment how that's some cause for some optimism. But there's been 27 deaths in Pickens County due to COVID-19 since the beginning of this on March the 20th. We've had a total of 1,858 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since that first case. In South Carolina, right now we have 18,037 cases in the last 14 days. That would be active cases. That brings the total confirmed cases in South Carolina to just north of 100,000. The confirmed deaths in South Carolina of 1,966, closing in on that 2,000 person landmark, which of course is very, very, very sad for our state. The good news, though, we need to really take the opportunity to find good news when we can, because this is such a frustrating thing. It may seem like we focus on just the negative. The red line there represents the total cases that have been reported in Pickens County. You can see that goes all the way back to March 19th, the day before we had a first case reported. The important thing about that red line is the slope. And I've tried to do this in a couple different explanations to folks, and they find out how incredibly stupid I actually am. The rise over the run, right? The slope is important, the rise over the run. And so what you're seeing there is that early on in June, we had a very steep slope, and you're starting to see that slope, the rise over the run, start to dissipate somewhat. It's more dramatic to look at the blue line. The blue line represents our active cases day after day after day. And you'll see that in late June, early July, we peaked out, and we peaked out up over 400. And things were looking pretty grim in terms of numbers at that point. But you see, since then, we basically have had numbers move off the 14-day active list at a slightly faster pace than we've added new cases on. That's here locally. So here locally in Pickens County, I think what we're doing seems to be showing that we've curbed the spread. We've bent the curve, which you hear everyone talking about. So I just wanted to point that out as a moment of good news, as a moment of encouragement to tell people to keep doing what we're doing. What we're doing appears, based on the raw data, to be helping. So I wanted to give you that information. Moving on, off of COVID-19, I want to remind you all of your 6 goals, which we have used to focus our efforts as a staff over the past few months. We're now at the halfway point in the year. Since you gave us those goals, we're making good progress on many of them, and in others we're taking a 6-month stop and look and saying, are we doing what council told us to? And so I wanted to update you on one specific goal. Goal 1, maintain a conservative budget, and goal 3, plan for capital expenditures. I guess that's actually 2. Staff received an instruction this week, if you go to the next slide, from our finance director to submit by September 4th their 5-year capital improvement plans. We made them go through this process back during last year's budget process back in the spring. But now we're going to be more formal. We're going to sit down and have individual meetings with individual departments on what their capital requests are for the next 5 years. Again, that's got to be back to us and by September the 4th. We'll then take it to the relevant committees that need to hear it. For example, the Emergency Services Board will need to hear what the staff recommendation is, with the goal that we bring you gentlemen in October, in late October, we bring you a 5-year capital improvement plan for y'all to really do the work of council, to weigh the priorities and determine, is this the direction we should be going? My thought process is if we do this in the fall and we get in a rhythm of doing it in the fall, we won't be crammed with so much work in the spring. And it'll give you time to focus instead on the non-capital expenditures, the regular operating expenditures. And if we get in this rhythm, I think it'll give you a lot more input and a lot more ability to guide staff in the way that you think is the proper direction. So look for that coming up in late October. I just wanted to let you know that we are going to start doing that work as a staff in the coming days. The next thing to update you on is that 2020, although you may have forgotten, is a comprehensive plan year. We're required, Mr. Whitehurst will remember specifically from his time on the Planning Commission, we're required to go through this process. A comprehensive planning process usually involves a lot of public meetings, a lot of things that we have not been able to do up to now. Fortunately, we have the services of the Pond Company, which is rolling out this week a very interactive and sophisticated website that will allow you to do online surveys to mark specific areas of concern in the county that you would like the county council and the planning commission to know. So this will be open to the public. You'll see these are just screen caps. You can't use these on this format, but this will be what it looks like. Surveys, maps, chances for input. So we'll encourage that and announce that publicly, but I wanted you all to know that the comprehensive planning process must move forward. We're required by law to do it. And so this will be the mechanism by which we communicate with the public during the pandemic. Moving on to the next item, I want to give you some updates again on revenues, and to set the frame, gentlemen, you'll remember that council wanted me to report back every month on how we're doing on revenues. Tax revenues, the tax bills won't come out for a couple more months, so we won't be able to give you numbers on that, but we're showing you other revenues. I guess you lead with the big story, right? The big story is Mile Creek Park. Total revenue in 2019 up to this point was $179,804. You can see the park revenue now, $427,613. Mile Creek Park has been heavily used throughout the COVID period, other than those 2 weeks or so when we were closed down completely. And that plus the docks and the cabins, which came through grant funding from Duke, have allowed that facility to really do well. And so I wanted to let you know about those revenues. 164% increase in camping revenues, 60% increase in day pass revenue, and 137% in total revenue. That's 137% increase in total revenue. Really proud of Mile Creek Park, really proud of the progress we're making out there. Encourage people to visit. You'll see that picture of the docks there. Having those courtesy docks, those rentable docks, that were provided through a Duke grant at Mile Creek Park are a game changer. It ups the playing field for all of us. We find that the people that are renting are at a different price point, so to speak, because they're expecting higher amenities. So we think it'll be good for everyone. They'll spend more money in the county. Our park will continue to improve, and I wanted to update you on that.
Can I ask a
Sure.
How about our expenses up there?
Well, the expenses have gone up, but the expenses, for example, the docks and the cabins, a lot of that was taken care of.
Right.
So the operating expenses have not increased in proportion.
Well, I would think we need to make sure that we have enough services up there. When you have more people there, you got more trash.
That's
you
right.
got more stuff. So I know I'm not asking to say if they haven't gone up at all, I would be
Right.
concerned.
Right. Well, I can tell you one way they've definitely gone up. You all had great foresight in providing one additional staff person to work in the Parks and Recreation and Tourism office, and this is part of the point. We anticipated the emphasis that you all and staff is putting on Mile Creek Park that we would need
Keeping
more
it
staff.
clean and keeping it, yeah.
That's right. So we're working hard on that. Looking at some other less exciting, I know that staff members watch this meeting. I hear back about it, so the fact that I just said the Register of Deeds was not exciting will probably get me teased a little bit. But for the Register of Deeds, for July 2020, a total of 1,937 documents were processed. That's an increase from up to this point in 2019. Our revenue at the Register of Deeds up to the end of July 2020 was $283,000. Compared to last year at the same time, it was $201,000. So what this tells us is that real estate transactions, refinances, purchases are still doing well in Pickens County. And that number reflects the documents that are being recorded. Also shows us that the revenues from the Register of Deeds are good and we don't need to be concerned. Going one more, and we're going to go through a couple of these slides quickly because I really challenged our planning director, Chris Brink, to give me some more data, and he proved a point to me that he could give me way more data than I could handle. So we'll go through the next 2 or 3 slides. What he's showing you here is the different types of things that the planning department, the building permits, the stormwater permits, the septic permits, the electrical permits, he's showing you those. But I want to go through a few of these, although it's very good data. For our purposes, I want to get you see the first number there, that was 2019, the big blue line. 2019 for building permits, residential burning permits. If you go to the next line, that's 2020. It's hard to see that, but there's growth there. We're having more building permits now than we had last year at this time. If you go to the next slide, that's showing us the different revenues 2019 to 2020, and you'll see that they're increasing in the lower chart, so that's a good sign for us. One change is septic permits. DHEC is doing all of those out of Greenville now, so we don't get the revenue from that. Total permits, you'll see the top in 2019 to date was fees paid of $50,000, $50,826. To date so far this year, $65,437. So what we're seeing is good continued development in Pickens County despite COVID. Moving on, I'll update you on this, and many of you will have already seen this announced publicly, and also I provided an email to let you know that we were doing this. Hearkening back to February of this year, Councilman Bowers at this time in the meeting asked me about recycle centers. And he said, I think staff can find a way under the existing budget to get these things open predictably 6 days a week. So we did. We went back and looked at that, and we started this morning, open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, we think that this is great progress in the sense that the public has been asking us to open the centers on Wednesday. We figured out a way to do it without raising any taxes, without expending any money over and above what was already budgeted. We figured out a way to do it and stay within our budget. That being said, we anticipate that there will be some folks that are not pleased by this, but either people stopping on their way to work or stopping on their way home. And we may see heavier usage on Saturday. All I would tell you about that is that we're going to watch that and we're going to pay attention to it and see if we need to make adjustments. And I just want to let you know that we've placed that into place. We think it'll be better for the public and that it gives them good, predictable hours at all recycle centers throughout the county.
Before you move forward, Mr. Roper.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind. I'm assuming that you did some research on all this, and traffic counts and peak times of days and those kinds of things were taken into play when you made these hours. Is that a correct assumption?
It is. We've been looking at that for some time. I think, to your point, back when in the budget process it was determined that we were going to eliminate the Wednesday hours, that was done based on the fact that Wednesday was a low usage day. But we still know that right before closing, the hour or so before closing, in the first 30 minutes or so in the morning were our low use times too, and we could demonstrate that. So when we looked at trimming hours, that was the way we did it. When can we trim hours while inconveniencing the fewest people? And then try to make it predictable and routine for people. The question we always got was, or the complaint we always got was, different centers are open at different times and it was confusing to the public. And so we based it on data, just as you suggest. When were our lightest usage times? Keep in mind that particularly in the fall, winter, and early spring months, after 6 p.m., it's going to be getting dark. And we don't have a lot of usage at all at the recycling centers after dark. In the summer, it's a little more of an issue, and we'll look at that. To give you a point of reference, because I know you're
My next question is, do you have any idea what it costs?
oh, okay, I was heading a whole different direction. But yeah, in terms of the cost, a rough way to look at it, and this is very round numbers, every hour we add, the math is this: 8 centers, 6 days a week, 1 employee, $10 an hour. You add that all up, you end up with $50,000 a year every hour you add to the centers. So looking at, if you were to look at, and I know that some people will ask this question, if you were to look at, what if we opened them up 6 days a week back to the normal hours, the previous hours of 7 a.m. to 7:20? You're talking in the ballpark of $125,000 to do that. That'll be a conversation we will need to have next year in the budget process, but it's not something that we could handle as a staff. We feel like this is a huge step forward into predictable hours, but anything beyond this, any adjustments beyond this, we will need you all to help us during the budgeting process.
You were saying something before I interrupted you.
I think it was just about the predictable nature of the hours. But thank you, Councilman Bowers, for giving us that challenge. It took us 6 months to get you an answer, but I feel like we've made some progress. One more thing before I conclude, if there's not any other questions, and I would like for you to add for executive session tonight an employment discussion regarding the Public Works Department.
Can I ask Mr. Roper one more question while he's up there? Sure. Just one of those, we can go back 6 months from now maybe and revisit it, but just for point of, I was looking through, and back early in the COVID stuff, we talked about 2 different fund sources. One, and we actually have an ordinance with one, but we passed a resolution and we talked about infrastructure and tying money back to
Oh, yes.
FIC
yes.
or something, CIS something.
The FLC, the Forfeited Land Commission. So when the Forfeited Land Commission sells property that was sold at the delinquent tax sale but wasn't bid on by anybody, it ends up the county's property, the Forfeited Land Commission's property, and we end up with an amount it just goes in the general fund now if it's unclaimed, or I'm sorry, I'm confusing those. If it's, once we sell the property, we just put that in the general fund. So there was that fund created. It was created for road issues.
So I don't remember what we did, because there was a lot of confusion, and you guys will remember we talked even as recently as last month about this. But that fund, the FLC money, where exactly do we stand on that?
Yeah, I actually probably need guidance from you all. You created the fund, you earmarked it. Instead of it going to the general fund, it goes into a fund that you said was for road improvements. Okay, and it's a ballpark figure, we're talking about $100,000 in that fund. You earmarked it for road improvements, but in terms of whether that's road improvements that I need to apply that money to, or is it road improvements I need to bring back to you all, We did not put that fine of a point on it. So I would like some guidance on that now that you raised the issue.
Okay, so I guess in the new business, I need to bring it up.
You can bring it up. Yeah.
Okay.
We need to add it to the agenda to discuss it. Or-
He would do it and do a motion.
Okay.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, item number 5 is committee reports. The Committee of the Whole met in council chambers at the administration facility on Monday, July 13th. It was immediately following the council meeting. And first item was log number 146, recreation funding request. So I'm going to go through these by district, and since it comes as a recommendation for committee, no second required. But I've asked you to do me a favor of accepting the recommendation for the whole amount, unless we get into discussion. So for council, District 1, it's the SC Interscholastic Cycling, $2,000. District 2, SC Interscholastic Cycling, $2,000. Town of 6 Mile, $14,305. Central Parks and Recreation, $15,000. For a total of $31,305. District 3, City of Pickens, $99,720.54. And the Pickens County YMCA, $27.50 for a total of $102,470.54. District 4, the Liberty Recreation Booster Club, $12,700. District 5, Pickens County YMCA, $27.50. And the City of Easley Parks and Recreation Department, $50,000 for a total of $52,750. And District 6, Dacusville Recreation, $37,580.78. As I mentioned before, no seconds required since it comes as a recommendation to the committee. Is there any discussion?
I had a question,
Yes, sir.
and this is my memory. That cycling, wasn't that supposed to be from 3 districts, or that was just 2 districts?
1, 2.
I thought there was 3 districts tied into that, and we were doing $2,000 each. Is
Yeah,
that?
that's I think you were right.
And I'm,
1, 2, and 4.
that's an old fuzzy memory.
1, 2, and 4. Was that what that was that?
One, 2, and 4. So that's supposed to be an additional $2,000 from District 4. That's right. I remember now.
What is it?
Because of the cycling is the one.
Right, we're gonna do it 3 ways and
3
do.
ways. So that needs to be added. So I'll make the amendment to add that $2,000.
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Any discussion on the addition of the 2,000? Thank you so much for catching that.
I just happened to catch it,
I don't know why I didn't. All right, all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Okay, so any other, y'all look through this and make sure we got it right. This is just on the recreation funding request. No other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. We also did log number 147, accommodations tax recommendations. We'll do the same thing that I just did before, except this time, I'm just gonna go through each of the items because it doesn't pertain to a specific district. Reference number 1, the Town of Central Parks and Recreation Department for the HUK Central Pro-Am Disc Golf Tournament, $4,000. The Clemson Area Chamber of Commerce Visit Clemson Annual Tourism Promotion, there's 0 on that. The Town of Central, for the Central Railroad Festival, $3,000. Hagen Mill Foundation Native American Festival, $2,000. Hagen Mill Foundation Banjo Extravaganza, $1,000. Upstate Heritage Quilt Trail, the development and promotion, $6,600. The Clemson Blues Festival, the Grady Clemson Music Festival, and of course, this is going to happen for next year, not for this year, but $5,000. The Winter Bluegrass Jubilee with the Preserving Our Southern Appalachian Music Organization, $6,000. Dacusville Heritage Association for the Dacusville Farm Show, $4,000, and that's for the 2021 event. The Senior League World Series, again, this is for next year, the $25,000, and that's it for a total of $56,600. No seconds required because it does come as a recommendation for committee. Is there any discussion? Anything we missed? All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that motion carries. Log number 154 was the discussion of ordinance 586. No action was taken by the committee, and that ends my committee report. Now on to council correspondence. And I do have some stuff to tell you guys about there. Under council correspondence, the committee of the whole will meet on Monday, August the 17th, at 6 o'clock in the main conference room of this facility. We're going to have a marketing workshop to discuss the new county branding on Monday. You guys have got the written presentation at your desk. That'll be Monday, August 24th at 6. Let everybody know the non-essential county offices will be closed on Monday, September the 7th in observance of Labor Day. And due to the Labor Day holiday, the next council meeting will be on Monday, September 14th at 6:30 in this auditorium. The other correspondence that I wanted to let you guys know about was I met with Dr. DeHay from Tri-County Technical College. He has agreed to set up a quarterly meeting with whoever the chairman is, so that we can at least open those lines of communications to find out the things that are going on at Tri-County as a result of our last budget meeting. One of the things that he let me know about was during this, I guess, the silver lining to the pandemic is that they were able to reissue some of their bonds to get a lower rate. And actually, there's the number of points, which is going to come out to a savings of over $14,000 to Pickens County in next year's budgeting. And he said that they were passing that along to us. They are faced with some pretty significant challenges with the reopening of Clemson University, and the bridge program is a part of that. So the bridge program has moved it. Clemson moved 2 weeks back. The students were supposed to stay on campus, so they're working through all those things. Asked about the enrollment, it is coming in late, but they expect it to be flat to last year. So that was what I wanted to let you guys know about that. I also wanted to let you know that based on Mr. Roper's conversation about the capital improvement plan, I'd like to go ahead and schedule, don't know that we'll do it, but put it on your calendars for October 26th, a meeting on capital improvement 5-year plan. And that's all the correspondence that I have. Does anybody else have anything? Yes, sir. It's a Monday night. All right, now we're item number 7, motion period of new business.
I'd like to first off make a motion to add Public Works to executive session.
All right, motion to add, is there a second? Second by Councilman Feaster. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That goes through.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a motion to add FLC fund to the agenda.
A motion to add FLC fund to the agenda, is there a second? I'll second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. All right, that carries. We'll take that up next, Mr. Roper. Anything else for motion period in new business? All right, seeing none, I'd like to go ahead and move forward with the FLC fund if we could.
The FLC fund, and I talked about it just for a moment, so just to bring clarity so I can get guidance from you all. FLC, Forfeited Land Commission, is the company created by state law that bids in for property when no one bids on it at the delinquent tax sale. So something bad will have happened. Someone didn't pay their taxes, and when we get to the auction, no one wants it. So under the operation of state law, the Forfeited Land Commission bids the taxes due, and they're awarded the property. The law then allows the Forfeited Land Commission, which is run by the treasurer, the auditor, and the register of deeds, to sell the property on whatever terms they deem most advantageous to the county. Traditionally, what we do is we have a list over in delinquent tax office. You can walk over there tomorrow and ask for it and look at it and say, hey, I'll give you $5,000 for that piece of property. And we will consider that, the Forfeited Land Commission will consider that, determine what to do. The result of that is money goes into an account. In the past, it just went into the general fund, the proceeds from those sales. But as a part of your COVID economic stimulus, you said, no, let's earmark that money for road issues that might help our businesses or our community. Councilman Bowers brings it up, and there's actually an example where we could use this. That's at the Ortex site between Pickens and Easley. I've been in conversations in the past with the mayor of Easley where they're willing to fix an issue with the road where the trucks line up in the morning waiting to get into the Ortex site. And it creates a hazard for rest traffic, and sometimes it can back all the way up to Highway 8. That would be a good use of this fund, but the question remains, and it was unanswered before, do you intend that to be something staff does, that we know that's money available like the road user fee is, and that we need to use it on roads? Or do you intend that to be something that occasionally you come back and weigh in on the proper use of that fund? You didn't really debate that at the time, and quite frankly, I just said, okay, that money's set aside, we'll worry about that later. But anyway, any guidance you could give would be most welcomed.
So what are y'all's thoughts on, is this something that we need to look at where he's gonna come to us with every road project that we approve? Or is this something that we're just going to say, tell us how much money you're dealing with, and who would, and that's what you're asking for, who would decide which projects are
Normally I like to bring you a recommendation, but since this is kind of a, and also, do I make that call? Does my staff make that call?
Thought, and I'm anxious to hear what you guys think. My original thought is I don't want us to get bogged down into picking winners and losers. Then it becomes political as far as the district. I think it's important that you take care of the roads that we have. If you see an issue that you can solve a problem, like the example that you gave, then I think that should be your call. But I'm curious what you think.
I would agree with you, because I don't want this to become a political thing. What we're trying to do is take some excess money and try to direct it to something that more universally serves everybody. Everybody works for the roads. There's not a lot of money. We're talking a very insignificant amount of money.
Talking about small projects.
Small, or just to help this get over the hump, or you got an emergency come up. It's kind of like we have the recreation fund, and then somebody gets a hole washed out on the disc golf course.
Yeah.
And they have some money there to cover it. It's not necessarily planned in, but I like your idea. Just let that be part of road maintenance, but yet you use it as your discretion, not necessarily on a particular project, just as needs be, what you think will serve best for the county.
If it would suit, and I don't know that you want this level of detail because, the meetings are finite. You have a certain amount of time, you've got a lot of work to do, but if it would suit the next couple of times that we access that fund, I'll report back to you that month so that you'll see whether or not we're on task, and then we'll get a good precedent going and we can go from there.
I don't mind that. What I was getting at is I just don't think that we need to be up here, because I'm gonna fight for District 4. That's who needs it. It becomes Hunger Games all of a sudden for, who's gonna get the money for their little project.
Well, what we establish is a precedent for future councils.
Right.
And we don't know how future councils will be or act,
Right.
or what have you. And a lot of stuff that we have created in the past is because of particular councils having struggles over one council ganging up on another council, and the big cities getting money in the little towns, and this little squabbling. And I think if it's serving the county roads, I think that the further away from we keep that from us, I feel is.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and this is really one of the reasons I even brought it up tonight, is that I try to keep decent notes. I went back and looked. There was a lot of confusion in that meeting where we discussed this.
We were punchy because it was late.
I know. Well, and then the next meeting we discussed it, there was even more confusion. We went down a whole nother path and direction. And it's kind of funny how that works. But saying that, we left it very unclear. And there are some things that, like rec funds, that we do vote on and decide. This is one of those I don't want to decide. But the one note that stuck out with me is we talked about economic development, we talked about infrastructure, and then we got to roads and little projects, and like Councilman Whitehurst said, that little hump to make it over. The last thing I want to do is for it to sit there and not be used because no one knows how to use it.
One other thing I'd like for the, when the money is used, I'd like for it to be reported so that people in the community will know what that money is used for.
Because we don't have to admit it, we don't have to say it. Mr. Farley knows exactly what I'm saying. Any improvement you do on infrastructure, a road, whatever, it all ties to economic development. It's not the traditional blingy economic development of a business announcement, but if you improve infrastructure that you already have, you are doing economic development, or at least trying to build economic development. And I think that's what I got the spirit was, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just sitting, not being used. That's the reason I bring it up.
I don't think you need a motion from us, just,
Now, you designated the money, he brought the issue up, I want to make sure I'm going to use it in harmony with what you want, so
Is
I
that
have
clear
what I
enough
need.
for you?
What's that?
Is that clear? Is that clear as mud now?
That's clear enough for me, thank you, thank you.
all right,
Thank y'all.
thank you, guys.
Thank you, that's a good point.
All right, let's move on to our next item. We were gonna have the Pickens County Youth Board, Behavioral Health Services, they were on the agenda, but they had a conflict again, so we're gonna reschedule them one more time. I guess 3 will be the charm for them. Next item is the consideration of request from the Pickens County Library System.
I would just introduce Stephanie Howard, the library director, who we're delighted to have with us tonight, so she can fill you in on this request.
We have had a gentleman, Mr. Jim Gregory, approach the library about donating some land that's adjacent to the library's land. The Captain Kimberly Hampton Memorial Library sits on what was his family's land, and it's a stretch of land sort of between the Wendy's right there and the library. He'd like to donate that land, and he does have some conditions. And those conditions were that Pickens County, or the library, pay for all the closing costs associated with the land. A small plaque or monument be placed on the site in honor of Mr. Gregory's mother. His mother's name is also on the our historical room, the Mary Oates Gregory Historical Room. He bought the naming rights for that when they were building the library. So a small plaque or monument of some type on the grounds there. He said he would be willing to pay for that. He did talk with Mr. Garrison to see if he had had any stone or anything left over from Project Dragonfly, and he'd work with him so that it would look nice. And that the third condition is that the land belonged to the library, the county, and that it would not be sold. We met and talked about it at the last library board meeting, and the library board would like to move forward with that donation.
What questions do you have?
Do we have the current stipulation of not being able to sell the land and all that other on the library property? Do not know.
I hear the county attorney behind me making noise because he's having the same thought I'm having. There's a statute on that. I don't remember the language of that statute, but I don't think it's easy.
That didn't give us any idea what they,
I don't think you can sell library property. I hesitate to say, but he's going to have to look that up. Right.
The reason I ask, that's not an atypical thing. That's a normal, someone donates land for the library, that's a normal.
Right. We wouldn't be concerned about that condition.
do you guys have a plan for it?
The plan is to just clean it up a little bit, not cut all the trees down, but clean it up a little bit, and maybe if there's room, some benches or something out there. But there are some nice trees, it just needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
If you're not familiar, and this is the heart of my district, it's the reason I'm very familiar, If you're not familiar, it's not a very usable
Yeah.
piece of land anyway, as you can tell. But the one thing it does do is, with it as overgrown as it is, you can't see up the hill at all. If you'll actually go down, there's a piece at see that gap? Let's see, it's behind, excuse me, it's behind the karate place. They have cleaned up all of that. I don't know if he sold or what, but he cleaned up a section of that. And you can actually see the back of the library now. You can see the back of the building now. And, you know, it's something you weren't able to see before.
Right, he did sell that to Mr. Moon, and he cleaned that up on his own. I think it would be great if it was cleaned up a little bit, so you could see a little bit of a library, but it is still a buffer between all that on
Correct.
123 and the
Correct,
library.
100%.
And his mom was the plaque that he wants to have. She was the librarian for a long time.
I think she was on the library board, I'm
On the
not
library
exactly sure, yeah.
And that was their land originally, all of that. Yeah.
So, Mr. Administrator, we have to give permission for this to happen?
It's a good idea for you all to approve it by resolution since it'll become county property.
What about the funds for the closing cost?
We can handle that. I can handle that out of contingency funds that I have access to.
Do we have to go with a formal resolution or just a vote?
I think a motion second and a vote here is perfectly sufficient. It will reflected in the minutes, will be fine.
So a motion by resolution.
Sure.
To accept the gift with the contingencies provided.
That's exactly what my motion was, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
that's what I thought. And second by Councilman Hendricks. Is there any other discussion?
We are covering the closing costs and that is it, correct?
All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. That resolution passes. Thank you. Can't look at my numbers here. Our next item is the second reading of ordinance 589 to amend the accommodations tax for Pickens County so as to make it more uniformly applied to accommodations within the county. Mr. Ripper, if you could just do a brief explanation again about why we're doing this. This has to do with the vacation rental by owner.
Okay, when I took a look at this accommodation fees, tax fees, and the state has an accommodation tax. Our ordinance, as it is presently written, is a little bit confusing. So the amendment that I presented to you is to make a conformance with the state accommodation tax, so that it's clear. We're doing several revenue rules to construe it. So basically, this is an accommodations fee that we have is 3% of the gross proceeds of the accommodations. So the state imposes a 3% on any rental? The state has a 7% tax. Just a flat tax on top of any rental, so hotel room and everything, on top of, and that's on top of the A tax that we collect? That's correct. No wonder it costs so much to get a hotel room.
There's a breakdown on the back of the door.
It's Captain Winters is part sales tax and part. Okay, so it's but what part is the accommodation? What part's the sales? I think the 6% would be the 5%, and the accommodation it is a little bit complicated. But then they allow us to do 3% fee on top of that. Now, this happens, what happens to, are we automatically getting this already with the hotels? Is this part of the inconsistency that the hotels in Pickens County are paying this 3%? Yes, and it's been a statute or ordinance here for, I've got a copy of it, but it hasn't not about it as well.
We have ordinance 589.
And it's just not clear. So what I've got to do right is make it clear and conform to the state. So when you say it's not clear, we've been collecting a 3% tax.
It's not new.
It's not new, and we've been collecting 3% tax, however, we've not been uniformly collecting. We've been collecting it on hotels, but not like the bed and breakfasts and or this would be just people rent their houses out? So how are they responsible for paying that monthly or quarterly, or how is that? I mean, is it kind of like, is it going to the Department of Revenue website and paying it that way?
No, they need to pay it directly to us. And what the state has done, there was a law that was passed in 2014 that was designed to address it because counties are not collecting this tax. In 2014, there was some provisions that were put in and then sharing information with us. But we're not getting that information, so that's one of the reasons I was to make our ordinance in conformity with the state ordinance so that we could.
So they're not giving us the information right now?
I don't think that they have to give us unless we specifically request that they turn left.
Well, we didn't even have, we couldn't collect on any of those because we didn't have that.
Well, we don't even know what's out there, so we couldn't even ask for the information to find out. Couldn't we at least ask how many people are?
And that's exactly what we should do. Let's get our ordinance correct so that there's not ambiguity whether we can see.
Does this apply to Airbnb?
Yes, and our old one should have, but the way we construed it didn't. That's one of the things.
So how are we going to enforce this?
Well, I don't want to jump in, but a lot of the companies like Airbnb, Vrbo, those companies, they have a mechanism for collecting that. But since we don't.
Right, they have a mechanism, but if you're saying the owner of the place has to pay it, it doesn't get paid through Airbnb, doesn't pay it.
Airbnb pays it to the state of South Carolina.
Okay, so my point being is that you add a lot of layers of people having to come up, collect taxes and pay taxes on stuff. If it's through Airbnb and they handle it, that's easier for the homeowner.
That's right.
That's what I was getting at, is we're gonna say, okay, now you gotta fill out this form every month and you gotta, so if they go through Airbnb or vacation rental by owner, any of those sites, all we have to do in this ordinance is to notify them that we have an ordinance now in place that requires 3% to go to us. And then they will in turn let the homeowner know that there's going to be a 3% room tax that they'll be charged on top of that. And then that'll get paid so that the owner of the house doesn't get wrapped up in all this.
That's right. That's our idea.
Is that the way it works? Well, yeah, I understand, but is that the way it works in other places that they have this?
It works in the state. I don't know about that.
What I want to make sure is that we do some research and find out how this is collected and how it's paid to see if that's how it's going to be done. Because it's going to be hard to get people to go sit there and say, okay, you got to tell this person we got this extra 3% tax you got to pay, and then I got to fill out some paperwork and I got to write a check. I just know there's a system in place to collect it and pay it to us.
One of the things that the state did is they actually issued a regulation, and it's 117.307.3 if you want to look at it. But what they said is our ordinance says that if you have 6 bedrooms or less on your property, and it is your abode, you're not subject to the tax.
Okay.
So if you read that on plain face value, that would mean if you own a home, you have less than 6 bedrooms, you can rent it out through Airbnb or VRBO or any of the other ones that you're not subject to the tax. Well, in fact, the state has taken that language and said, no, that is your abode, only if you stay there while you're paying the tax.
But that's not written in the law, is it? Is it in the law?
It is. Their statute, the South Carolina statute has the same language, but then they issued this regulation that says you have to actually be there. I brought a copy of that to you. I was surprised when I read that.
So they realized that they had written it wrong.
That's right.
And then they came back and said, if you're actually living in the house while they're there, you don't have to pay it. But if you rent your house out, is it Airbnb and vacation rental by owner? Is that the only two? I mean, of those, but all of them would be notified, I guess, and they have a way of, what I wanted to do before we get to third reading is know that there's a system in place that is not burdensome on the person trying to rent their house out, and that can actually collect the money for them, pay it to the state, because I know what it is to pay sales tax, and it's a pain in the frickin' rear end. So,
I think it's two different issues, though. One is that we have to have it in the ordinance, and that's what this does. The other is, we want to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for those people that are really, if I have a home that I don't, but if I had a home on the lake that I wanted to rent out as a part of Airbnb or Vrbo, or even do it on my own, I know that I have to pay this tax, because we don't have a lot of hotel rooms, but I do know in this county, we have a lot of people who go through Vrbo.
right.
Airbnb.
And if it's handled by a Vrbo, and they charge the client the money and say, here's your tax you have to pay on it, collect from them, and then they pay it, then that's easy.
Well, we put some language in the ordinance, the policy statement, that if you are an agent for the person that has a house, which would be Airbnb or even a real estate agent leasing it out, you're responsible for doing it.
Okay.
But I would like to follow the state's example, and the same like the state gets their tax money with our fee money. I like it to be as streamlined as easy as it can be. So the purpose of amending this ordinance is to make it streamlined, conforming to the state, and then we can adopt their system so that it's easy. So
And what is their system that's different? You just,
because they are collecting it from Airbnb, not Airbnb,
right,
just what you want.
okay. So I guess I want to verify that's going to happen before the third reading of this. I don't want to put this in place and then go, let's figure out how to implement it and make it work.
And one of the other things that is, I contact our finance department to find out, well, how much money do we get? And we get some money from Airbnb, but we can't tell is this individual where this is.
So what you're going to need to do before we meet again is figure out how much we're talking about, and that there is a system in place that collects it through those companies, so it's not a burdensome on the homeowner to have to figure out how to pay us a check every month or every time they rent their thing out, and then it's not coming out of what they're doing, but it's that the person that's using the place is paying the tax. Because they're not even knowing how they going, we're going to tell every single one, hey, we got a big notice, it's a 3% tax. We need to be informing via our Airbnb and those guys, and then they do it automatically. Does that make sense what I'm, so you're gonna have all that done before we get back next time for third reading? I'm asking.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, anybody, is that,
Brother, I was there 3 years ago.
okay,
And that's not an exaggeration. We were talking about 6 months, but go back and look, 3 years ago, we had this conversation. And I was exactly where you were, and which brings me to the question, now that I understand the collection model, I forgot the word, abode, thank you, the abode ruling. That's been our hiccup. That's been one of our major hiccups the whole time, is the how many bedrooms, abode, et cetera, which excluded a lot of people because it was a 2-bedroom house and that was the way we interpreted it or whatever. And at least that was the what I had gotten. And that's one reason we're talking about it now. If I read this correctly, it doesn't matter if it's a tiny house, studio. If you're not living there, when you rent it, if I rent my studio to you in downtown Clemson for a football game, you're going to pay the accommodations fee because I'm not living there with you.
That's right.
That's the correct interpretation of this, right?
That's right. And the only way you were exempt as it being your abode is if you were there at the time you went.
so if you want a bed and breakfast and live in it, you don't pay this.
You're right.
But
That's interesting.
But the only way, to my point though, would be if I had a 2-bedroom house, I rented you a bedroom, you don't have to pay it because you're a roommate, I'm renting a bedroom too.
That's right. If you're in the house, it's your abode, and therefore you're exempt by the state tax and the county fee.
I got you.
That's right.
I think the cleanest is to follow the state, what the state's doing, because that's gonna make the easiest sense to everybody.
Yep.
But that clarifies and actually accomplishes what I wanted to try to accomplish a couple years ago.
That regulation, I make fun of how arcane it is, but it has lots of examples on how
And we just talked about it.
how that works.
Any other questions? All right, this would be our second reading, and you've been given marching orders, Mr. Attorney. So no other questions? I ask for a
Motion.
Yeah, have we?
Did we do a motion? No, we did not.
We didn't do a motion. I just said
Chairman,
it.
I make a
You started
motion.
talking.
I'm so sorry. You know me.
And I'll let you
My
do it.
mouth just runs. It doesn't have
It's my
a,
fault. No, it's
there's
entirely
no
my
break
fault.
right
It's
here that
entirely
just
my
comes
fault.
out.
I still want to make a motion that we adopt this second reading. Mr.
And
Chairman.
I'll second it.
Motion to adopt.
Second it.
Second to adopt the second reading of ordinance 589. Any other discussion?
My apologies.
No, I'm kidding. It's my fault. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That motion carries.
Can't keep us in line here.
Yeah, maybe we'll get home before midnight.
Yeah, okay, fine. On to our next item. This is the third reading of ordinance number 588 to develop a jointly owned and operated industrial business park in conjunction with Oconee County. Such industrial business park to be geographically located in Oconee County and established pursuant to section 4-1-170 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976 as amended, to provide for a written agreement with the Oconee County to provide for the expenses of the park, the percentage of revenue, application, and distribution of fees in lieu of ad valorem taxation and other matters related thereto. This is where they get 99% and we get 1%.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Whitehurst, the second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. Our next item is, I'm gonna keep moving track here, the consent agenda. So, on the consent agenda is the discussion of county policy of alcohol. There wasn't anything else added to the consent agenda? No. Ask for a motion to second that we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Motion, second.
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. All right, item number 13, executive session. So, I ask that we adjourn and enter into executive session for the specific following reasons. This is contractual for Easy Library, Project Jericho, Project Arnold, and employment info and public works. Ask for a motion in a second.
So moved.
A motion by Councilman Hudson, second by Councilman Teamster. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion instead of Councilman Hudson,
Oh,
for the record.
sorry. Sounded just like him. Couldn't see his lips. Motion by Vice Chairman Bowers, second by Councilman Teamster. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. We'll enter into executive after a 5-minute break.
You don't get my credit.
That'll be all right. Screw it. We'll be okay.
Exactly in the exact same place you were.